And we're live. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting stream. I'm sharing it on Facebook right now, and on Twitter shortly. But basically, the outlet that I write for, and that also sponsors my content, is okay. So apparently there were 100 people tagged in Facebook's dumb fuck algorithm. Just hadn't realized it yet. Whatever. We'll be complaining about Facebook a lot today, and they're actually the reason this thing is late, um, because like it was fetching an old fucking thumbnail for this for no reason, so I had to scuttle the entire last stream in order to get it back up and going with the right thumbnail and not the previous thumbnail. But anyway, that aside, the outlet that I write for was summarily censored by Facebook uh, with no terms of service violations, and the person behind it, the person who runs it, was banned from Facebook, and so were the admins for the page. So we'll be discussing that, and we'll be discussing, in general, agorism, how the thing got started, everything really. But basically, I have to fully disclose this in order for, whatever journalistic integrity, because I have to have that since most people don't. Um, I do write for the site. I financially benefit from the site. They are a sponsor of this content, and if you guys decide you want to help me make more from this site and help all the people who work there, feel free to go to the donate page on agoristnexus.com. But before we get into any of this, let me give Brandon Agro a chance to introduce himself. Let us know how he got into libertarian activism and that in general. How he got the site going, what the idea was for it, and generally what pushed it to this point.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on, Jeremiah. It's a real honor to be here and to get a chance to talk with your very well informed audience. So, um, uh, now as far as your questions go, yeah, I got into libertarianism in 2002. I I wouldn't really consider myself like a super real libertarian back then, even though I was a libertarian. Um, and I, unfortunately voted back then too. I think the first person I voted for was Michael Badnarik. So I was more of a constitutional libertarian back in the in those times. And
You could
then,
do worse than Mike.
yeah, yeah, and you know, I, through my voting, I never violated the non-aggression principle, and nobody I voted for ever came to power. So I'm relieved about that. But later on, I realized that voting was just violence and stuff. But I think we were all brainwashed at one point in time,
Yeah, the last
for
person
sure.
I voted for, I wrote in Sonic.
Nice, yeah,
Um, but go ahead.
yeah. So, long story short, I later became an anarchist, and then I read New Libertarian Manifesto, and I had like a little side Agorist business that I wanted to try to market a little bit, and so I went to another Gore site and was like, hey, check this out. Can I list there? And I never got a response, and I kind of felt like, um, I kind of felt like that wasn't giving enough uh, attention or service to the Agorist community, and I felt like I could do better, and I wanted to really expand on it. Not just have businesses, but I wanted to expand in terms of articles, content, podcasting, the whole nine yards, and we'll be expanding into publishing and author services soon. So
Right.
we've already got the infrastructure to do that. We've got the editors and the writers and stuff. So and then it's kind of unofficial, but you'll get the inside scoop. Uh, Wendy McElroy decided to write a book for us, so she'll be the first person that we publish once her book's done. Now that's going to take some time, but yeah, she actually announced that on our site in a comment. I forget which article it was. Let me see. I think it's her latest one. Yeah, uh,
And I'd assume
review
it'd
an
be
Agorist primer,
okay.
Agorist primer. She says here that that she's writing a book and that Agorist Nexus inspired her to do that. So yeah, and she'll be she had mentioned to me that she wanted us to publish that for her. So
And since it's windy, I'm assuming it'll have something strongly to do with anti-war. So I'm looking forward to the to what she puts out there. Um,
yeah, she's an amazing author. So.
so on that score, um, I guess let's cut to the chase. Facebook summarily banned you, removed all pages with which you were affiliated, and demanded that you provide an ID in order to get everything back. You so will you be trying to do that, or are you going to sort of resist this weird dystopic kind of thing that they're doing?
Yeah, I won't be giving him an ID for sure. I I just have a problem with that. I think CIA, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think Facebook was kind of like a somewhat of like a CIA op in the beginning.
I can talk about
From
that
what I've
actually, and maybe I should make this my latest article. Talk about how like Facebook is a highly centralized and government funded operation, and how there are decentralized options. Let me know in Keybase if you're interested in that article. But basically, key Facebook was partially funded through Keyhole, through InQtel, which is the CIA venture capital angel investment company that also went on to sponsor things like Google Maps, which started out as a government project. Like they have a much better version of Google Maps available to them. Um, and not only Google Maps, but also like a host of other basically intelligence services, and also the game development company Niantic, which I still have a bunch of notes that I'm writing for a comprehensive sort of documentary on how Niantic is gamifying oppression, and turning people into roving security droids. But basically, like the whole thing is like Facebook is definitely a government institution. There's an article on Zero Hedge called the government to Facebook pipeline, and it details how government employees get in at Facebook easier than others, and also that many of the high-ranking people in Facebook were government employees, and Facebook's initial seed funding, a lot of it came from sources either connected to or directly from the state. So yeah, I mean it's not just a conspiracy theory. It's definitely really there.
yeah, you probably know better on that than me, but yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to an article on that for sure if you'd
Yeah.
like to
Well,
write that.
because Facebook and the CIA specifically piss me off. And I've had a vendetta against the CIA for a long time. Like, if the president had any power, which like to do this sort of thing, which they don't, but if they did, I might consider running because if I could abolish the CIA, so many people would be benefited from that. So much evil would be stopped, and so many terrible things would not see the light of day. I mean, clearly the president doesn't have that power because, or the presidency isn't for that sort of thing to begin with. Because if that was the case, Trump and his oh my God, I'm so upset about the deep state thing. He would have canceled the CIA a long time ago, but clearly that isn't on the table. It's just like the CIA is a very strong antagonist in my story here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're the biggest drug cartel in the world, and what else was I was looking at something else that they were doing, and then they like topple regimes and put in even worse people that they can control,
Right.
and then yeah, and then they run all these intelligence ops on their own citizens, and
Right.
uh,
Operation Cyclone was where Zbigniew Brzezinski um helped radicalize Muslims in the region for the first time, and he helped them learn how to make IEDs. He armed them, trained them, and like all of this was so that he could point them at Russia and say that land is yours, take it back. During around the Cold War era, and this became the basis for every major Islamic terror institution that exists now, and it also became the basis for every single military operation in the Middle East thenceforth. So basically, the CIA literally created every single enemy that the U.S. has now in their crosshairs, and the Islamic terror threat wouldn't exist without them.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting too. Absolutely, and that's just one of many hundreds of cases that they've done, and not to mention what is it, Operation Mockingbird too, where they pretty much
Control the
took
press.
over. Yeah, they control all of all media, so pretty much.
NMK Ultra, where they tried to figure out how to control people's brains.
Yeah, and they use some of those tactics to brainwash us via the media that they took over. So yeah, it's CIA is definitely one of the ones on my top list. Maybe the IRS and definitely the Fed. I think those three are like the my trifecta. But yeah, man.
Yeah, well, and so what led up to the ban, do you think? Like, was
Over,
there anything specifically you were posting?
no, well, I didn't get. The strange thing was that I didn't get a warning. I didn't get anything. It was just like all of a sudden, all your stuff's gone, and I think it was because like a couple years ago, somebody that I knew had made me like an editor or like an admin of their page, and I guess they started posting a lot of Boog stuff, and that page got terminated. It was a smaller page. That page got terminated, and then all the pages that I was on, it was kind of like a guilty by association, I think. But well, and this is just my belief. They haven't even told me why exactly, but all the pages that I was an admin or an editor on got deleted, including a fairly big page called Libertarianism, which was they had like 60,000 followers, and they've been around since I think they were telling me February 19th of 2012. Um, and I've been with them for quite a while, but yeah, that was a great page and a huge loss, in my opinion, especially to us because they would always let me post stuff there and reshare my stuff, and not to brag, but just from some of the messages that I've gotten, and I'm pretty sure it's because of libertarianism. And a huge shout out to them. They've done a great job, in my opinion, at spreading liberty. But uh, but a couple of the messages that I've received is like, hey, like, thank you so much for what you're doing with the Gorism, and because of you, I'm now an Agorist. So, and I love to get messages like that. I think I've gotten 3 or 4 messages like that. So I'm not trying to say that I'm, you know, a god of agorism or anything, or I'm not trying to be cocky, but these are just the messages that I've received, and it's been a huge honor to serve this community in some small way or another. So hopefully we can grow and spread from here. So
Yeah, customer feedback. And also, like, generally speaking, there aren't very many people talking about agorism from an agorist perspective. Like, there's some people who call themselves agorist, and then when I ask them, they say they haven't read any of Konkin's writings. So, like, it's
right.
it's weird to me to say that you are a thing without knowing anything about the thing you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and the crazy thing too is that Facebook was saying that it was mainly just the violent boot pages that got taken down. But the thing is that Agorist Nexus, we we didn't endorse or want to have anything to do Boog related, because in my opinion, Boogs kind of contradict agorism, and if just the definition, just the Wikipedia definition of agorism alone, it says with aspects of peaceful revolution, and Boogs obviously aren't a peaceful way of revolting, and I don't even like that word revolution because it means a circle, so you're kind of circling back to the beginning. But I look at more of like a we're evolving, and because we want to interact peacefully with each other. But yeah, in any case, Agorist Nexus was there. We're really not um, wanting a boog in any way. We really don't want violence. The message that did get from Facebook, I don't have the exact message on hand, but it was saying violence or criminal activity, and maybe to them, maybe we were, I don't know, engaging in criminal activity. In my opinion, it's that we're, well, it's not even an opinion, it's a fact. But um, the fact of the matter is that we are trying to evade um, criminal activity. We're trying to evade these extortionists the best that we can, and because we don't want to support these, the murderous state that perpetuates violence all across the world. So, and not just that one, just all government in general. So,
Right. Yeah, well, and so first off, I will say that, there is an agorist case for Boog. But I like partially so that we can stay on Facebook with the new page, and partially because maybe it would be better if I wrote my super extremist bullshit on my own site. Um, but I'll be writing a write up on that because that's an interesting prompt. I think like elements of peaceful revolution is the important distinction there. I think the primary thrust of agorism is trying to engage in as many off-white market elements as you can so that it chokes the state. But if I defend my store with defensive violence, and if I defend my activities the same way, and if everybody else did the same thing while also engaging in black and gray market activities, that would definitionally be a boog. So it depends on the reason you're anarchist, well, and agorist specifically, as to whether or not you believe in the boog, and also whether or not you think it's a viable strategy on its own. A lot of agorists do, but a lot of agorists think that it's not viable because you can't get a peaceful society from a violent sort of approach. You can't beat people into anarchy. Um, you've got to convince them slowly over time. And that's what a lot of agorists believe. I mean, I, I'm sort of on the fence about that. Like, I definitely support people's right to boog. But first off, nobody said that on the page, so the ban is bullshit. And second off, the idea of booging is so widely varied in and of itself that people are
Yeah.
like
I
trying
mean,
to
how,
forcibly associate it with white supremacy anyway. So
right? Yeah, definitely. It's even if you're a supporter, it doesn't mean that you're um, spreading violence, wanting violence or whatever. It's just like, maybe we need to defend against the state, and um, and I'm more on the peaceful camp. Like we can't really, um, bomb for peace, or in other words, but um, and then even class theory. I believe it was class theory, where Konkin basically says, that once agorism pretty much takes over, that that everybody who did commit these crimes will be able to work and give their victims, compensate their victims for um, the atrocities and the damages that they've done. And so really, if we were to kill politicians or soldiers, we couldn't really get get that you know get that money back uh, to the victims. So I really I'm really more on the peaceful camp myself, just from Conkin's writings. But
right, but you
um,
got banned and
but
I
I can,
didn't.
yeah, and that's the crazy thing. But I think it was and now I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was because I was like a moderator or editor or admin on. I was one of these other pages, but I was admin and editor on several pages. So to eliminate me in every page that I was on is just ludicrous in my opinion, especially Agorist Nexus that didn't advocate for boogs whatsoever. So
Right. Well, and it's real. See, this is the thing. I'm fucking shocked every time I don't wake up like canceled or banned. Um, because I'm an extremist asshole. I say things that should get me like censored. In a lot of contexts. But maybe I've fucking unlocked the formula for how to say these things and not get banned. I don't know. But the point is that if anyone should have been banned, it would have been me. And if that was the case, I wasn't connected to any pages like that. I wasn't even an admin on the original Agorist Nexus page. So it's almost like what they wanted to do was justify taking down a bunch of pages that went counter to their prevailing narrative and that made the state that they rely on and support look bad. Um, and they use that as an excuse. And the reason I'm not banned is because I'm not formally connected to a decent enough amount of pages. And maybe they just wanted to use that as an excuse, and they don't actually care about content. They didn't actually care about the boog, because whenever somebody has gone undercover to look up, to look at Facebook's practices, they've almost always found somebody in Facebook, and usually multiple people in Facebook saying that, yeah, I'll just ban people for X. It doesn't even need to break the rules. There's so many cases of Facebook employees saying this, and it's almost like they're just sort of looking for an excuse. And in these highly polarized times, um, where everybody is being encouraged to virtue signal and join the cult, um, like essentially, it seems kind of like Facebook just wanted to throw out the baby with the bathwater because they also didn't like the baby.
mhm. Yeah, exactly, and I definitely agree with that. And you know, being with some pretty large pages, you know, I think they kind of targeted, these larger pages that I was with, and it's hard to have a big page on Facebook because they scrutinize you even harder than normal. So once you get past 40, 50,000 followers, they really start to lay the hammer down. And I was getting 30-day bans for posts that didn't even violate. I would comb through their you know quote unquote community standards, and I couldn't see a single reason for uh, for the posts that they banned me on. But yeah, just the censorship, and I mean, everybody knows Facebook censors because
Mm-hmm.
these liberal pages can they can spread hate speech or whatnot, and and I think they were even saying like violent things against Trump like 4 years ago, and nothing would happen. But then, some of these conservative pages were being taken down for saying things that the liberals didn't like. So it's definitely there's definitely a double standard there.
Well, there is something there though. First off, Agorist Nexus is for agorism, and agorism was always a leftist movement. Like Konkin, um, and his movement for the libertarian left was always about trying to like unify the left libertarians just as much as the right libertarians were unified, and try to get them on a similar enough page that they'd be effective in action with each other. So agorism was leftist, and they censored an agorist page, but they also censor a bunch of just generally freedom oriented pages that are very critical of the right and very critical of police, military, etc. Like the Free Thought Project and Police the Police have been censored many times now, and I interviewed Jason Bassler, who is certainly no rightist. And the pages, like, I think there was a page called Reverb that also got censored, and that was a leftist page. And there are plenty of leftist pages that have been censored by Facebook and Twitter. And the like, I think it's less about left and right and more about what you can justify censoring in the moment. And I think right now, because of who Trump is, they think they can get away with getting this particular kind of wrong think off the spot. And I think when there's a leftist in charge in 4.5 years, I think that, well, I'm not even sure there'll be a leftist, but when there's a more liberal neoliberal in the presidency, and a lot of stuff has swung the opposite direction of Trump because that's how the pendulum of politics works. I think they'll have a brand new group of people to justify censoring, and I think that this is how it's always going to work because these people are controlling public perception, and if they can like get one side or the other of the most extreme anti-establishment positions off the board, one at a time, and constantly be the janitor so that the elites never get exposed for anything, and anybody starts to try is summarily silenced. I think that's what's going to be the true sort of agenda, not necessarily left versus right, but
Yeah,
authoritarian versus libertarian, because it's almost always the libertarians that get banned en masse. Like, Boogaloo people aren't mostly white supremacist, like the media wants people to believe. They're mostly people who are sick of government, and they want it gone. They don't want to replace it with another fascier one. So I think that this is just another excuse to silence people who want to subvert the existing order and alter the status quo. And I think these like hyper capitalist neoliberal corporations are trying to silence anybody who gets in their way.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I think you're right. I think it's less of a left versus right and more of a who's going against the establishment type of thing, for sure. So yeah, the whole thing just really stinks. Especially losing libertarianism. I kind of I kind of feel really bad for those guys because um, it was probably just me being an admin on their page that got them taken down, and that page has been around since early 2012. So Facebook lost, you know, a loyal page with a very loyal following, and I think that's just tragic. But yeah, it's you know, it is what it is, and we just have to try to move on the best we can. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing to try to rectify it and help Agorist Nexus in any way that you can. And thank you so much for you know uh, establishing Agorist Nexus 2.0 while I
Well,
try to get my boots in order here. You know,
well,
or my
I mean, like it's not altruism.
my
I firmly
boats
believe that
in a row.
altruism. Go ahead. It chopped
Yeah,
out for a
can you hear
second.
me? Yeah, I heard the choppiness too.
Gotcha. Well, so what I was saying is like it's not necessarily like altruism. Like I don't think altruism is even possible. It's like I want my voice to get back amplified. I want, you know, Wendy McElroy, Lily Forrester, Graham Smith, you, anybody else at this outlet, and anybody who like joins in the future. I want their voices to be amplified too. So I guess a good question is, um, first off, uh, what would you tell Facebook if you could?
That what I tell them, I would probably tell them, even though we've got different points of view, if you think your point of view is the best one, then you shouldn't be afraid of uh, you know, other points of view or other mindsets because um, I think there's kind of like a market for ideas and the best ideas will win out. And if you really believe that you've got the best ideas, um, then you shouldn't be worried about those ideals, and you shouldn't censor people who have different beliefs and ideas themselves. So um,
Yeah, of course, a lot of
you
that
know,
could be boiled down to how craven these people are. Like,
right? Yeah, and not to get into conspiracies, but I definitely think and we were talking about this earlier that the government is probably involved in some way or another. So
yeah, well, and it, because that's the thing. Like, Facebook specifically, always this, it's a private company. Facebook is barely private if it is at all. First off, it's a publicly traded corporation with corporate rules, and some of those corporate rules are the reason they get to make as much money as they do and have as much influence as they do. So they better damn well follow them. Um, and those corporate rules include like Section 230 provisions, where the only reason they have safe harbor to be the way that they are is because they're a neutral platform and not a publisher. So if they start co-signing and endorsing things and saying only what we endorse should be allowed on the platform, they become a publisher and not a platform. Like, you're not going to allow some boot deep throating red, white, and blue like flag it come on your page, and write an article for Agorist Nexus about how great the U.S. is and how we should bomb those brown people and ban the blacks from neighborhoods. You know, the whole like publisher idea is that you get to highly curate your content and you get to decide how it works. But the platform concept is that within certain neutrality elements and within legal guidelines, people can say whatever the fuck they want because it's a platform and it's neutral and it's not stopping people from saying whatever the fuck they want. The whole idea of like a place like Facebook trying to claim that because they're private, they should be able to do whatever they want, or more accurately, their loyal boot slobbering adherents. Um, flies in the face of both law and proper philosophy. The whole idea of saying that it's somehow private and therefore above reproach and criticism, and that also it should be able to do whatever it wants to do regardless of what that um, is so not only problematic and hypocritical, and also violative of the rules that give them their power, but it's evil because it allows a major institution to hide behind the veil of neutrality while being anything but, thus controlling what the neutral is and being able to manually move the Overton window by a force of 1.6 billion users monopoly. It's really sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a lot of good points. And another thing I want to bring up too is that when you talk about the censorship that you're receiving from these platforms, many people, including some of the libertarians that I've seen, is, oh well, it is a private company. It's like they act like I can't even speak out against it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, I'm trying to influence the market so that they don't censor, liberty pages um, for speaking the truth. So,
Customer fucking
um,
feedback.
right, yeah, exactly. And it's like we should be able to, I just get this sense of like they don't even think that we can even, I don't know. It's all
Well,
frustrating, but
I mean, it's basically like what amounts to the libertarian excuse for fascism. Like corporate and government can get as close and buddy buddy as they want, and they can serve each other as much as they want, and you can't say shit because you're a prole. It's fascism, and they're trying to make it
yeah,
seem like it's libertarianism. Libertarianism includes the right to speak out against whoever the fuck I want, and if they don't like
yeah.
it, they shouldn't call themselves libertarians. I'm just saying words. I'm just typing letters, and I'm just using my fucking throat. There's literally zero wrong with that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they act like we can't even speak out about it. And it's like, you know what? We're allowed to speak to the market and say, hey, there's something wrong here. Like, if Starbucks is poisoning people, oh well, there's a private company. Well, yeah, but I'm still gonna tell people, hey, Starbucks is killing people over here. Like, it's the same thing. So
Yeah, I mean, the Eggman Empire was a private company, and I do not side with him. It's all about the blue blur, the only blue life that matters. Anyway, let me ask you something. First off, uh, if you had the choice to come back on without providing an ID, if somebody contacted Facebook, if there was a petition or whatever, and Facebook for some reason decided to let you back in, because you're a peaceful person, fucking, uh, if they decided to, would you go back, or would you say that Facebook is a fundamentally corrupt institution and we shouldn't have to beg every time we want to speak our mind?
yeah, that's a good question. I've kind of just been um, reflecting recently and haven't really thought about it. But I might try to come back just with just with the new profile
Mm-hmm.
and not have to ask people to I value people's time and but I really do appreciate all the support that I've been receiving recently from the community and it's really and definitely inspired me. So, but yeah, I don't want to. I really want to value people's time and not ask them to um, petition. Even though I think we should be able. I don't have a problem with petitioning companies. I wouldn't want to petition a government, but yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with petitioning companies at all. But but yeah, I value their time, and I wouldn't want people to waste even a second on it. So
Right. You would rather they like spend that time doing like agorist activism of their own.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Another question. I know you're on Float. Um, you're also on Discord. Uh, until that server gets banned for no reason, like Nick Irwin was. And so many other people, by the way, like hundreds of people I know have contacted me saying they got the same exact email I did for, sending threat to violence, targeted harassment, community, blah, blah. Um, and they also didn't do these things. They also didn't participate in any of the things that the email said they did. Um, and so I'm wondering if you have plans to back up these presences on that are on Twitter and Discord, the two places censoring people right now that you haven't been banned from in other places like PocketNet and Minds and other sorts of decentralized like Mastodon social networks and Keybase for things like Discord.
Yeah, yeah. I really love Keybase. We'll see what happens with Zoom purchasing them, but but I'd say Float is probably my most favorite platform. I'm kind of looking into others. I'm not sure which ones I want to get involved with, but I hear like Mayway. I don't know if you've heard that. I think it's like MEWE.
I have. It's another centralized place though, and Float is centralized too, by the way.
Yeah, floats centralized, but I don't think they'd ever. I don't think 100% of everything has to be necessarily decentralized. I encourage the market to go that route, um, but I don't think float would would censor Agorist Nexus ever. So, but yeah, I really love float. I love Keybase, so we're probably gonna set up some kind of group on there. And yeah, I'm looking into Minds and some of these other platforms for sure.
Okay. Do you have any plans on joining any of those other ones relatively soon, or are you still looking?
You know what? I think I already have a group set up for Keybase. Actually, let me see. Yeah, I do. I've invited a couple people, but nobody's joined. Let me see.
Well, okay. So the next question is, essentially, uh, which place do you think people will have the most reliable time finding you in the future?
Currently probably Keybase and Float at the moment, and I'm still looking into which other platforms I want to get involved with.
Yeah, and of course, like
But
Twitter, for some reason, I've been there 11 years and I haven't been fully banned yet. So, I mean, we'll see. There's always tomorrow, but Twitter is like generally a better track record on free speech than other platforms. And people are going to bring up to me that Stefan Molyneux was recently banned, but he also harasses women about egg fertility, and he constantly brings up like race and IQ and a long series of other things. So I think he was legitimately probably breaking terms of service, and they probably legitimately found some violations in that regard. Um,
yeah, Molyneux goes collectivist on some things, and I really don't like collectivism in any sense. So
yeah. Well, so I think he probably got banned recently for actually, um, legitimate reasons, probably. At least according to TOS. I mean, if it was a free speech platform, see, this is the thing. Like a lot of people get banned, and we're supposed to feel bad, but they haven't diversified at all. And Stefan Molyneux is on zero blockchains, as far as I know. I can't find a blockchain he's on, and in doing so, he's fundamentally crippled his ability to reliably post because eventually somebody can delete his account if they want to, and he's up to their whim. So I encourage everybody to get to some sort of decentralized platform, like at least one.
yeah, absolutely. for sure.
And it's funny because I made this point on Twitter a few days ago. Actually, it might have been yesterday. It was 1 or 2 days ago, something like that. Whatever, fuck it. Time is an illusion. Um, but I made the point on Twitter, and a bunch of leftists were mad at me because I said, if you don't want to get banned like Stefan Molyneux was, but I made the point, leftists get censored too, and maybe they should take this advice, and realize that the only reason they're seeing this advice is because I tagged a place that they go, um, and back up their social presence and not get censored themselves. Maybe it's universally good advice, and they really shouldn't like talk down about it, and should like take it to heart. Um, but that didn't make any of these people happy. I make a bunch of people sad. That's my job.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a hellscape. So for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that relatively well wraps it up. What do you want people to know, like in regards to your vision for an agorist future, and then where can they find you?
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. A vision for an Agorist future. Uh. Yeah. I mean, eventually, it that's kind of a crazy saying because eventually, I mean, the whole point of agorism is so that we won't need agorism anymore. So that we won't have to um, voluntarily interact counter economically. Um, so uh, yeah, eventually I won't even I won't want uh, any agorism at all because hopefully there's no state. Um, and all of these people will be um, all these victims of the state will be compensated accordingly. Um, but yeah, really, our mission at Agorist Nexus is to spread agorism um, and connect the counter economy. So I just we're trying to spread agorism to as many people as possible. Um, come out with great content that hopefully provides value. Some of the feedback that I've gotten, people have said that we are providing value somewhat, so that's encouraging. And and yeah, to expand into as many realms as possible, publishing, um, hopefully more premium. I'm thinking about like premium newsletters that charge. We do have free newsletters, but maybe even like premium newsletters or something. So yeah, just to expand as much as possible, to spread agorism as much as possible, and to try to connect people, you know, counter economically as much as possible. Like, let's say if there was a a business that you didn't even know about, and you heard about them through us. That's something that we definitely um, love to love to do and love to hear about. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you, Jeremiah. I really appreciate you having me on. It's
Gotcha.
an
Well,
honor.
and thank you for coming on, because and I posted about this morning again because I wrote a much more comprehensive article about it on Agorist Nexus, but most people don't read more than like 500 words, so like a 9,000 word article isn't generally up their alley anyway. But much less two of them, which I have two like real sledgehammers of information on the site. But I
Those
sort
are
of
great articles, by the way.
thank you.
People should definitely be looking at those. So
Um, but I sort of condensed it this morning because something happened recently in June. Uh, Trump pulled out support for WHO in mid-May, and immediately gave $1.6 billion to Gavi. Gavi
yeah,
is behind ID 2020. ID 2020 has a founding board, including the Rockefellers, who also gave Gavi money in June, and is on the founding board of ID 2020 as well. ID 2020 also has Accenture on the board. Accenture makes blockchain tech for corporate and government interests. They're working on a cashless dollar as a coin shortage happens. A cashless dollar which will work on a blockchain exactly like ID 2020 will. Because of all this and the cattle car treatment we're getting because of COVID-19 restrictions, they're installing a facial recognition superstate that will link all actions to your permanent ID and ID, which is what Gavi is making through ID 2020. These blockchains are designed to remove privacy from every aspect of your life. You don't want to give your name to cops? Fine. We got it with a camera. We know where you've been, who you know, what you've bought, and what you believe. Congrats, America. The Fifth Amendment is worthless. I posted that today, and I wanted to say that because there's a message that replaces everything you ever sent me on Facebook Messenger when I try to open the window. This message has been temporarily removed because the sender's account requires verification. You cannot reply to this conversation. And I just wanted people to think about the future that is coming up, because eventually you won't be able to interact with another citizen in the free and brave country of the United States if their identity requires verification, and if they're unwilling to get on this cattle car and just do as they're told, as they're ushered into a dystopic new world order. So realize that this is real time, and it's not just about Facebook, and it's not a fucking game, it's not a fucking joke, and it's not just a Facebook page. This is the future. And if you don't like what you see here, beware, because it's coming everywhere if you don't stop it. So, with that being said, thanks for coming on. Smash the fucking state.
Smash the state.